Hi, this is Phil Shapiro. This is my book review of the book, The Water Defenders, How Ordinary People Saved a Country from Corporate Greed by Robin Broad and John Kavanagh. So this is a fairly recent book, and I found it an interesting read because it was, all things considered, it was pretty uplifting. It's a story of grassroots organizing and success in El Salvador to protect the water from mining companies who would go there to mine gold, and they would say, we'll take out the gold and we'll leave you with some toxic cyanide in the water as an exchange, as a fair exchange. So the people said, well, we really don't like that fair exchange, so why don't we stop the mining? So let's take a look at this book. So John Kavanagh, he works at the Institute for Policy Studies here in the Washington, D.C. area, and he found out about this organization called the National Roundtable on Mining, La Mesa, because that organization received a Human Rights Award from the Institute for Policy Studies. So this was back in 2009. And that's where this story begins. Now, the authors of the book, they are narrators of this story, but they're also actors within the story. Not central actors, but they are actors. They are allies of this organizing effort, which ends up being successful. So there was an award, and there was a sad situation where one of the leaders of the organization was killed, and his brother there was Miguel, and a speech was given by one of the community leaders, Fidelina Morales, and she gave a talk about this organizing effort to stop the toxic mining. So I've taken out a few quotes from the early parts of the book just to whet your interest. Marcelo is the name of the man who was 37-year-old school teacher who was killed because he was organizing against the large corporate mining company, Pac Rim. And here it talks about the dangers from the toxic cyanide. So it's a David and Goliath story. It's pretty interesting. The big money had a lot of power, but the community organizers, they rose up and they were able to convince the El Salvador legislature to pass a ban on mining, metal mining, in 2017. So the story starts off in 2009, and then this book is just maybe 2 years old. This is 2023 now. I think the book is a 2021 book. So they're talking here about the award ceremony here for this Human Rights Award, and how these husband and wife couple, the authors of the book, how they got hooked into this whole story. So we were intrigued by the prospect, however unlikely, that a poor country might actually choose to halt mining to save its water. So the man who was killed here does remind me of Joe Hill, the labor organizer from Utah. And he was memorialized in the song Joe Hill, sung by Joan Baez here at Woodstock. I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night. I never died, says he. Well, that's the story of Marcelo, who also didn't die. Even though he was murdered, his cause lived on and succeeded. This is a very interesting quote. In 1995, Egyptian environmentalist Ismail Sirgeldin warned, "The wars of the next century will be fought over water unless we change our approach to managing this precious and vital resource." So that was a prophetic quote. Along the journey of this book, you will also meet people who you might not expect to choose water over gold, people who became central players in this drama. Luis Parada, El Salvador's lead lawyer in the lawsuit, went from the Salvador military to West Point to become a skillful lawyer, a champion of the environment, and an arch rival to Pac Rim's smug corporate lawyers. So, very interesting. I found the book just a really interesting read. I learned a lot. And I have to say that the style of writing in the book, I might characterize it as determined serenity. The two authors of the book are, you can kind of tell by their character that they're humble people who are also very determined. So it makes for an interesting read. And then over here, I was going to find the end of the book, the story of the success, but instead of finding it at the end of the book, I found it right here on the web. Here's the Guardian newspaper in England, in Great Britain. El Salvador makes history as first nation to impose blanket ban on metal mining. Water over gold. And this is 2017. So some of you might be wondering how I make this book review. I like to do video book reviews because it reaches a broader audience than a textbook review. So I'm making this book review on this laptop I bought on eBay. It's a ThinkPad laptop. I paid $12.50. The laptop has a cracked screen. That's why it's so affordable. And I hooked it up to an external monitor. And I have a little webcam up here, a Logitech webcam. And I'm recording my audio on an Olympus digital audio recorder so that I have good quality audio. And I'm using a free program called Simple Screen Recorder. There's a free screencasting program for Linux called Simple Screen Recorder. The webcam, I'm using the software called GUVC View. And the whole presentation here, that I'm looking at a PDF right here. I made that in the LibreOffice presentation program. LibreOffice is the free version of Microsoft Office. So I commend you to take a look at this book. It's a very interesting book. You'll find it in your local public library. If your public library doesn't own a copy, you should ask them to buy a copy. People don't realize it, but a public library, the directors of public libraries, they often like to receive suggestions on book purchases. So if your library doesn't have a copy of Water Defenders, I'd walk into the library and ask them to buy it. Sometimes they have a postcard that you fill out if you want to suggest a book purchase, or you can go to their website. They might have a form to fill out. And then if they do purchase, it might take 2 or 3 months from the time of your suggestion to the time that the book is on the shelf. Here is me and my contact information. If you'd like to be in touch, there's my email. And I have a lot of other book reviews, more than 50. If you like the video book review form, you can find it. I have a Google site. Google Site's a free tool for building websites. You can have 10 Google Sites for every Gmail. So I use Google Sites, and I have links to the different book reviews I've done, mostly on YouTube, but sometimes on Amazon. And that is the address right there. Until next time, this is Phil Shapiro.